Hey everyone. So I hope this is my last video for a while. Great news yesterday. I'm in my favorite pub, so cheers. This is a great microbrewery in Kiev. Used to be full until all the foreigners left. Everyone else, so hopefully this place will come back. But if you ever come to visit me, this is fantastic. Kiev-made microbrewery, great food, great beer. So yes, hopefully this is the last one, because the news, of course, was fantastic yesterday. Some of the Russian soldiers were pulling back, which is good. Do I think that all of them will? No. Because, of course, as long as Putin continues to have over 100,000 soldiers around the Ukrainian border, he's forcing the Americans and the Europeans to meet with him, which, of course, is everything he's ever wanted, because, of course, it gives him legitimacy, it makes him look powerful to the Russian people. And hopefully he can get the Ukrainians out of NATO and stuff like this. Personally, I think it's still hilarious that the Western media continues on this narrative that Ukraine needs NATO. I think it's pretty obvious by looking at it that now the reason why Putin does not want Ukraine to join NATO is because NATO needs Ukraine. And the reason for that is, well, let me give you an example. The huge American force in Poland that's there in case the Russians invade Ukraine is 8,000 soldiers, right? 8,000 is the massive force of the Americans in Poland. And that's the largest force for NATO in Poland other than the Polish army. But Ukraine has about 150,000. What you should be looking at is not even the pullback, though, is what I found was the best story, and I'm going to end it here, is on Fox News. Dimitri Suslov in Moscow. Fox did a little something crazy. They actually had an interview in Moscow with a political expert for the Kremlin. Now, anyone who's Russian and Ukrainian will agree, if you are a Russian expert on the Kremlin, you only give your opinion about something like Ukraine when you are given permission by the Kremlin to give your opinion about Ukraine. And so he had a great article on Fox where he was saying they never intended to invade ever. It's actually, the Kremlin finds it quite humorous what happened because, of course, it was 10 times what they imagined when they just put some soldiers around the border, right? And I've actually found the most important part was when he said the Russians were never going to invade because they understood that the casualties and the war for the Russians, remember, the Ukrainian military is the second most powerful army in Europe next to the Russians. The Russians were always going to win, but it would have been a brutal war. A lot of Russian dead. A lot of those Russian soldiers, of course, would have had family in Ukraine. And then, of course, as he noted, the insurgency after, right? The Russians, Putin is not an idiot. He's been in Syria. He understands that when he defeated the Ukrainian army, of course, he would have had to occupy Ukraine, and that would have cost a lot more than 130,000 soldiers, right? An American friend of mine, General, was telling me usually when the Americans go into a country, they have a 1 for 10. So 1 soldier for every 10 citizens. So if you look at it in Ukraine, of course, the Russians, I'm sure they had the same metric. It would have been 400,000 soldiers they would have needed to occupy Ukraine. And even then, there's no end game, right? The end game is, forcing people to negotiate and trying to get, the Europeans and NATO to just look embarrassingly weak, which I believe they have. And anyways, cheers from Kiev. I'm now very confident that the Russians, unless something stupid happens, particularly from the West, everything should be fine. But this is the consequence of all of this. No tourism, Ukrainian economy destroyed once again, which is of course also what the Russians and Putin wanted, right? Our economy was getting a little bit too much better than the Russians after COVID. And, we also have to look like a bunch of fucking morons as well. So, cheers. Have a great day, and hopefully I won't have to send another video for a while. But I'll try to keep this channel open in case something else happens in this part of the world that maybe I can explain to you guys better than CBC interviewing the president of Finland about his interview with Putin, and the news article being the CBC News article talking about how the Finnish president feels that Putin spoke too long about Ukraine, which talks about how aggressive Russia is. Just fucking, just garbage. Watch Breaking Points online. They actually called it 3 weeks ago. They're an online news channel. I get a lot of my news from them. It's a guy who's a Democrat, and it's a woman who's a woman who's used to be a Democratic politician, and the man used to be a Republican politician. They're both in the middle, and they report on YouTube. I'll put the link for them. They called it 4 weeks ago. It's amazing what happens when you're not beholden to politicians or corporate sponsorship, how you report the news. Okay, and from Kiev with love, na zdrowie.